Hey everybody, Bart from Bicycle Rider YouTube, and I've got a Marin Alpine Trail E-1. There are a lot of videos about this bike on YouTube, and I see why. It is a really awesome bike. I've had a chance to ride it in a few different situations, and I'd like to tell you about my experiences with this bike that are a little bit different than some of the other reviewers. Of course, some of these guys have done a great job of going all the specs and geometry of this bike. Let me just summarize what they've done, because you can watch their videos or you can look up the Marin site to see every spec on this bike. But Marin has put together, once again, one of those bikes that is made for fun. This bike is made for extreme fun. I've had an extremely good time on this bike in multiple riding conditions, including some extreme downhill. I talked to some guys that even ride this bike more than I do. So I was just out in Park City, Utah. I was out there riding some trails. I went to the Big Gear Show. And while I was up on top of the mountain, I ran into a few guys that were riding the Marin Alpine Trail E-1 and E-2. Some locals that lived out there. They saw me with the demo bike and they just wanted to talk and tell me about their experiences with it. So for what this bike is designed for, going downhill, going down some, some treacherous terrain, some harder trails. This bike is fantastic at it. What also is good at is getting up those hills too. Sometimes these bike parks are pretty crowded and the lift lines are pretty long. As talking to some of the locals out there that were riding this bike, a lot of them, just live a few miles out of town. Rather than waiting in line all the time at the lift, they ride this bike, traverse this bike, to the mountain, and they can ride up and down the mountain without really having to get on the lift a lot. Or if they do take the lift all the way up to the top, they can just do loops on this bike. It's really nice having an e-mountain bike that is actually capable of riding these trails. I have to say, I'm a small guy. I am 150 pounds, about a 5'9" guy. And I was riding a size medium. That size fit me good. But what I want to get at is just the overall inertia of this bike. So, as you guys know, I am a cross-country mountain bike racer. As someone that's small, I usually am a weight weenie. So I like my mountain bikes as light as possible for what I do down here in Biloxi, Mississippi as far as cross-country racing. A light, nimble bike helps me zip through the trees. Now, when I'm up in Park City or, just doing some more enduro style riding, I don't get to do that on a regular basis. So it takes a little bit to get back into the groove of, trying to hook some of these big jumps, rolling up on the boulders and rolling up onto logs and stuff that we just don't have down here in South Mississippi. I am from Colorado and I grew up mountain bike riding. So I am accustomed to that kind of trail. Running the bicycle shop, and we are in Biloxi Bicycle Works right now. I don't get a chance to leave out here and take a lot of vacations. So thank you, Big Gear Show, for picking a place where I can actually go do some mountain biking. That's one of the only reasons I got out of the shop to go do that. So enough about me. Let me tell you about what a light guy feels like riding this bike. Of course, I see a lot of guys a lot heavier than me that use this bike to help them get that mass up the mountain and down the mountain without wearing them out. Of course, you're still getting a good workout on an e-bike, an e-mountain bike, but a bike like this is actually rideable. So even though I'm a light guy, I'm going down trails that I don't get to ride all the time, and they are a lot more steeper and rockier and chunkier and dangerous than I'm used to on a regular basis. A lot of times I worry about carrying a lot of weight on a bike, because as I'm railing through a corner or as I'm trying to angle this bike down after a jump, if I overcook something, if I hit that jump too fast, because I know speed saves you, but speed also has some pretty bad consequences. I know I'm 52 years old and I've hit the ground hard a number of times. On this particular vacation, I only knew I had a couple days to ride my bike, and I had to get back here and open up the bike shop. I couldn't do that all broken up. So as I was also being careful, I wanted to take advantage of the trail that was out there. This bike rides super nimble. It's 50 plus pounds. I'm used to a mountain bike, you know, that weighs barely over 20 pounds. But the way Marin has designed this bike, it really does ride great. And don't only take it from me. Go look at some of the other people that are, you know, making YouTube videos on this bike. This bike is extremely well built geometry wise. I'm not going to talk about the rake the trail, you know, all the numbers that you can get somewhere else, but believe me, it is definitely has that feeling of confidence. Not overconfidence, but confidence. You know, this bike allowed me to go over terrain that I wouldn't have done on a bike that had less of a geometry made for downhill. It has really short chain stays. The angle of this multi-track suspension, I mean, Sippy, you've done such a good job of engineering this thing. It really rocks. And of course, they built enough suspension into this bike. So this is a, you know, 160, 150. With that kind of suspension, I mean, I feel like I can soak up anything. I'm running a 100mm cross-country suspension. So when I get on something like this, it just seems raked out to me. It seems like there's a lot of travel, but in those trails, you need it. I do sell a lot of this bike down here on the coast of Mississippi. People ask me sometimes, why is someone buying a bike down here in coastal Mississippi that has this much suspension, has this much travel? It is really nice when you make a Shimano E-Step 7000 motor into a bike that is this capable and is this fun. So I have a lot of friends down here that have bought this bike. They ride this bike around the neighborhood and chase their kids without getting worn out. They ride this bike after work around the beach, down through town. They're not getting beat up. You know, this bike has plenty of suspension. So for the urban jungle, it is so nice with potholes, with curbs, with going across some little gravel parking lots, you know, chasing your kid through the park. This bike does all that. If you try to ride this bike that wasn't E-assisted on some of these terrains we have down here on the coast, you would get worn out. You're trying to play with your kids for a couple hours after work and you're gonna get worn out, because these bikes aren't the most efficient pedalers. When you mate this bike to this motor, all of a sudden you can pedal this bike, you know, however you want. We have a standing Friday ride here at the bike shop. It's called the Biloxi Friday Fun Ride. A mountain bike that is enduro based is not really the type of ride you want to, type of bike you want to bring to that ride. Of course, it is a friendly ride. It's a social pace. But if you try to do 11, 12 miles around Biloxi on a Friday night on an enduro bike, you know, especially if you're a 9-to-5 or if you're in tip-top shape, you know, that's okay. But a 9-to-5er that works a job from 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, doesn't have that much time to train, you could still ride this bike on that ride or almost any ride, social ride, and have a blast, even though it is a slacked out geometry with a lot of suspension. With this motor, it's very efficient, very fun to ride. If you do hit a curb or if you have to jump off a, you know, go through a pothole or something, this bike does it. It keeps it very comfortable. But yet, if you want to go out and ride this bike on the weekend with your friends out on the trails, it does that super well too. And I do like that it, you know, with this type of geometry, even on our trails here, it's a very, very stable platform. So as you get into some of those big sand pits, if you're getting into a berm, you know, having this raked out bike just really helps, you know, stay steady in those situations. And with the motor, you're not feeling like like you have so much suspension or the bike is so downhill orientated that you can't ride a cross-country trail. This bike is a blast on cross-country trails. And like I said, fitness level wise, if you aren't in tip-top shape, you can still go out and ride this bike with a group in the morning and still have enough energy to go take your wife around town shopping or do the yard, whatever you got to do on Saturday afternoon. It's not wearing you out. You know, with a dropper post equipped bike like this too. Of course, the dropper post was designed so you can get off the rear of this bike going down a downhill. On a cross-country trail, it's great to have multiple going into a corner or something, lower this thing down. You know, you get on a straightaway and you want to trace somebody down, use a little bit more leg. urban environments, it's great when you can get on and off your bike with a low seat. As you start riding, of course, you can give yourself some more leg when it's time to get off. There's just so many cool things about this bike in the urban jungle. Even when I'm just sitting on this does have a e-bike style seat on it. They're starting to do e-bike style seats because, of course, e-bikes are becoming more popular. There's something to the shape of the seat that is super comfortable. It has a little bit more tail in the back. I think maybe because that's the inertia that as you're pedaling this bike, you know, you're getting a little bit more speed, so it helps hold you on this seat. So the seat is comfortable. And when I'm talking about inertia too, this bike really is dialed in with a great feel. I've been on a lot of herky-jerky e-bikes. When you're climbing a rock garden or you're into one of these hairpin corners going down a mountain, herky-jerky is not that great. Have a very manageable power system like what is on this bike. And when you're up at the top of the rock garden, you can give it just a little bit of power and it's going to help you over it. It's not going to throw you over. It's not going to push you off a corner. This bike really, it's really rides fantastic in the mountains, but yet it's really fun on single track trail. And it's also a great urban assault weapon. So, I mean, there's just so many cool things about this bike. I've seen a lot of e-bikes with big batteries and big motors, and everybody's looking at specs and how powerful and how big the battery is. The locals that were riding this bike say they charge it up, you know, they work half a day. Next thing you know, they're riding this thing up the mountain, they're riding it back home, and they're not worried. They ride this bike enough that they're not worried about killing the batteries. They know it's got a long enough battery capacity, and it does have, you know, a very small little screen up here. And I say small is a good thing because it's not a big hunking screen. This is nice. Everything about this bike's pretty sleek, but it does give you, a power management on here, so you can see minute to minute basically how much battery life you have left. And this bike had enough battery for me to ride half a day in the mountain, up and down, and then back to the big gear show. You know, this bike really is great. When I was talking to the locals, a lot of these guys are riding from Park City up to Deer Valley. I'm thinking that's 4 or 5, maybe 6 miles. Riding the mountain, then riding back home, maybe taking their second shift at work or something. You know, so these guys are riding this bike. It's kind of funny because when you think about e-bikes, you think maybe the tourists all need e-bikes. Because they're maybe not as in shape, and, you know, limited time when you're on a mountain. Having an e-bike lets you go enjoy that, but still gives you enough energy to go around town and have dinner, have fun. But the locals are riding the e-bikes. These guys all had e-bikes, and I saw a lot of the Marin Alpine Trail E-1 up there. I guess value for $1. It's really giving you a lot of bike for the money with a lot of very capable components. So, I mean, look at the component list on there. You know, the RockShox Gold 35. It has e-mountain bike on it. So, you know, it's a nice sturdy fork. It doesn't have a whole lot of bells and whistles like some of the higher end Fox stuff. But believe me, it rides good, it tracks good, it's solid. A lot of times you don't have time to play around with all these buttons anyway. Set your suspension, let it eat. The coil suspension on the back of this thing, I believe in the size large and extra large, it's up to like a 400-pound rating on it. So, of course, me at 150 pounds, this thing felt great, but I did see a lot of bigger guys riding this bike in stock configuration. Speaking of that, it's a mullet setup, so that means it's a 29 and 27 and a half. We've set some people up with that here locally that are going to go do some, you know, dirt jumping. They want a real playful bike. They want a sturdy wheel. This 27 and a half inch wheel, you can put a much bigger tire on. This is one sturdy wheel, and you are putting some power through it. So the mullet setup on an e-bike like this, to me, makes a whole lot of sense. It's sturdy, it's fun, it's playful, and that's what this bike is. It's made for fun. But it's also one of those bikes that's not going to fall apart on you. You know, price is important, and some of these e-bikes are getting so expensive, and believe me, I do think they're worth it. But, you know, you have to work in your budget as well. This bike is under $5,000. I own a bike shop. I sell a lot of bikes. I sell a lot of acoustic bikes that are over $5,000. So you get a really sweet package here if you want a Swiss Army knife of a bike. If you do want to go play out on the trails without wearing yourself out. If you do want a bike that's a little bit more capable of maybe a bike vacation and going to some places like that are, have a little bit more enduro or downhill style terrain. We don't have that in Biloxi, Mississippi. My bike shop is a block off the beach right here. But I know guys that want to do that. They want to take their 1-2 vacations a year. And this bike is awesome for that. You don't have to get up there and rent a bike and wait in line and worry about insurance and have a bike that's not really set up for you. They can take this bike with them. But yet, like I said, you get off work at 5, 6 o'clock, you get home and you want to ride around the neighborhood a little bit. This bike screams, get on me and ride. Sometimes after a long day of work, you think, man, I don't know if I really want to go ride a bike. I've just worked all day. I'm hungry. I'm tired. One of these bikes, you're smiling. You're like, honey, I'm going to go for a ride. I'm going to go get some exercise tonight. And this bike does give you exercise. So don't think just because it's an e-bike, you're not getting a workout. I'm in pretty good shape right now. Just coming off some mountain bike racing. It was Tour de France month here last month, so I did a whole lot of road riding. When I went up to Park City, I was in pretty good shape, and this bike still gave me a workout. Of course, I was up in 8,000 feet, but this bike will let you work as hard as you want, but also take that risk factor of just blowing yourself up and having no energy left for the rest of your day. Alpine Trail E-1 is a great value for a really, really, really solid built mountain bike that Marin once again has just nailed it with geometry, with spec, with suspension angles, seat tube angles. Everything just seems to work really well with this bike, and they put it in a package that is extremely comparable. I mean, they're trying to get a price point on a bike and really put a package together to get more people out there having fun on bikes. If you do have a Marin dealer, definitely go check out your Marin dealer. Ask them about this bike. If you're in the Biloxi area, if you're in the Gulf Coast, come to Biloxi Bicycle Works. I would love to tell you about this bike. And then we do have GovVelo. So GovVelo.com is also our company. We're a small company that builds these bikes right. Every one of the employees here at Biloxi Bicycle Works and GovVelo, we all ride bikes. We just had Marin come down here and do a tour of our bike shop, and it's great to have those guys there. And so, we're following all the standards and exceeding all those standards. One, because we've got the love of bikes. We love riding bikes ourselves. So whenever we can get someone on a bike like this, call our customer service. You can call and talk to Deshay. She works here in the shop 5 days a week. So she knows her bikes. She can touch our bikes. She can ride our bikes. Hook us up. My name is Bart Luther. I'm very approachable. You can call me here at Biloxi Bicycle Works. You can reach me on govvelo.com on customer service. Talk to Blake, talk to Deshay. Talk to Steve. You can talk to, any one of my employees that works at the bike shop here knows bikes. They know this bike. And if you happen to not have a Marin dealer that's close to you and you want us to, ship you this bike, we can do it in a way that you feel like you've had a great buying experience, and we're there to have your back afterwards. So a lot of cool things with the Alpine Trail E-1. If you're at all interested in e-mountain bikes and you're, don't want to break the bank, or you want to buy two of these, one for you, one for your spouse or something, definitely check out this bike. I wholeheartedly believe in this bike. I think it looks awesome compared to a lot of other e-bikes out there, e-mountain bikes. It rides awesome because I've ridden it in multiple situations. And as someone who sells this bike, we don't get a lot of warranty and breakage and stuff on this bike. This bike is super solid. I wouldn't sell this bike out of my bike shop looking people eye to eye if I didn't believe in this bike. And there are a lot of internet companies that never have to deal with you. Since we are internet-based company and also have a brick and mortar, believe me, that eye to eye means something to me. When I look at a customer and I put this in their hands, I know if they have a problem, if they've got a question, if they've got, if they've got a concern, they're walking right back through my door, and I'm the guy that's front and center, helping them solve any of those issues, any of those pain points. So just know we do that on the online side as well. Like I said, I've got my customer service team is here. My mechanics are here. We're supporting the local economy, and we ride these bikes. So anyway, enough about my bicycle shop and what we do. The video is really about this Marin E-1. Like I said, if you've got a local Marin dealer, if you have a friend that has this bike, ask them if you could just take it for a quick ride. It's that good. You guys know me. I don't cuss on camera. I really don't cuss anyway. But this bike is friggin' awesome. Puts a smile on my face. I'm sure it'll put a smile on yours. If you have any questions about the Marin Alpine Trail E-1, just hit me up. All right, Bart from Bicycle Rider YouTube. Thank you for your time.